Welcome to the Secret Art of Business. And the guest today on the podcast is Zulene Adams of Z Promotions. Thanks so much for being here today, Zulene.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. I'd like you to first start talk about Z Promotions. What is that all about? When did you start? Maybe who your ideal customer is?
Oh, absolutely. Love talking about Z promotions, one of my favorite subjects. We've we've been in business almost 18 years, so we'll be celebrating that on June 1st. So
Wow.
business is 2006, which means we've seen a lot of interesting things happen in the last 18 years. So
Mm-hmm.
most recent catastrophic event that everyone can relate
Yes,
to is probably
yes.
the pandemic. But we went through the housing crisis when we were in our infancy. So that's something that people oftentimes forget. Things happen every 10 years or so, and Z Promotions has been, very fortunate to be able to weather those storms. We are known as a promotional products company or also as specialty. We're located in Central Ohio. However, we definitely have a global footprint. We work with clients all over the world from Germany, South Korea, Brazil,
Oh my
Canada.
goodness.
So we have lots of experience there. For what we do, we definitely are not the order taker. So if you want tchotchkes and trinkets, we're probably not the right partner. We really like to get to know our clients. So we want to understand your mission, your vision, your values, your objectives. And the great thing is, if Zulene Adams is your representative at Z Promotions, you don't just get her experience and her brain power, right? So we come together as a team weekly. We do brainstorming sessions for our clients. So you get my entire team. So, almost 200 years of experience to work on your special projects and campaigns. We love to make the recommendations because that's what we enjoy doing, which means we take that off your plate. And then on top of giving you the recommendations, we let you know how we recommend to use those products because we want to make sure that you're receiving a return on that investment. So oftentimes people are like, oh, you guys are like part of our marketing team. And if we're not their, part of it, we end up being their marketing team. So for what I do, it's a ton of fun. Can't imagine doing anything else. Every day is different. And I just really love, executing those objectives for our clients.
And what you are delivering is actually really important because I always think back to when I did a lot of trade shows and things like that. And one of the things that was mentioned is that, you know, regardless of where you go, the hotels are not always super thrilled with conventions because then the cleaning people have so much extra trash because people will go back to their room, and I've done this too, empty out the bag that you collected, and you really keep the things that you want to keep. And the good stuff you keep. And it would be great to have a conversation with you, prior to buying a bunch of stuff, so it doesn't end up in the trash, And what are some things that people are going to keep? What's a great thing that's going to represent our company that if they have it, that's going to remind them of that? Because I think people automatically think like stress balls. And I mean, you can only have so many stress balls. If everybody's doing that, then next thing you know, you got 12, and you don't even have that many hands. And then your kids are tickets to give you bringing them home and everything else. So, but if you're at obviously if you're at a conference for stress, perhaps that is a thing that you should pick. But the point is to have a conversation with someone on you or your team to know specifically what's going to have the best impact for me, so people will want to keep it, remember it, and think about my company when they do have it.
I love what you said there because our purpose here is to get you noticed and make you memorable through creative product branding, right? So if your company's pretty much like ours, because folks don't need our products and services every day, right? But we want to make sure that we're making that impact, that lasting impression that when they do need us, they know who to go to. They're coming to us instead of our competitor. So in terms of, I get asked a lot, what's the trend saying? What is it that I should do? This is where my team, it plays a very integral part because we look at, who you are, who your clients are, because that's really important as well, because we have to understand who you're targeting,
Yes.
right? If it is an event, like you're mentioning trade shows, conventions, that kind of thing, we'll find out if there's a theme, maybe it's the city that it's going to be in is being highlighted or incorporated. So we take all of that into account to make sure that we're, providing the right recommendation. Also, what I'm a huge proponent on is making sure that it's a practical item, meaning it's something that people are going to use over and over and over again. You want to
Yes.
continue to make sure that you're leaving that subliminal message, right? I'll give an example. So if we are at the Restaurant Association's annual conference, then obviously we would sit there and make sure that they have branded products that really resonate for those people who are going to be in attendance. So we've done things like pizza cutters, because how often do you use those? And you're not just using them for pizza. I use mine to cut out my pies and things like that. But again, it's something that I'm using that's practical. It's going to be held, in my home. I'm going to see it over and over. People who come over are going to see that brand. So it just helps to reinforce that. So trends are great, because we always have new products and a lot of great things that come out. But it's making sure that, we really are speaking to your target audience, and we're making that effective impact. So anytime that you're choosing a promotional product or a client, a company to work with to help you with that, just make sure and keep that in mind.
I think that's a great thing to mention, because what's on trend right now, what I found out, is pixie haircuts, and I don't think you or I are going to be getting one of those anytime soon. But
Not
I'm
with
always
these curls.
it would just look so crazy cut short. But there's some people who really can rock a pixie, So this might be their time if that's the trend. So yeah, all trends are not for everyone. So it's definitely worth checking out to see if it's the one that's for you or your customers. How did you get to start this company? What tell us the little story behind how you got to start the business and basically stick with it for 17 years.
Yeah, so I was working for another company in this industry years ago. And, changes happen as companies grow and scale. There are a lot of changes. I saw that the company was steering, their journey was really going down a route that I wasn't interested in, because they had some outside investors come in. So it wasn't anything to the owners or, how the current business was going, the model. But I just felt, maybe I want to do something a little different, becoming an entrepreneur. Had never done it before, but it's something that I always thought about as a child. So what I did was, I feel like it was pretty smart. I made sure to reach out to our highest a producer of the company, who, aside from the owner, and I reached out and said, hey, Andrew. So Andrew Gehring is my business partner, and said, what do you think about this? Do you want to venture out and do it on our own? And luckily, with two people who did not have any entrepreneurial experience, have really thrived, and we're going to be here 18 years in June. So
Very
lucky
cool.
us. But when it comes to the industry itself, I have to say, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what I was, really going to focus on. And I fell into this industry completely by accident. I really took it for granted. You always see things with, text and logos on there, but you just don't really think that there's an impactful industry behind it, not realizing we're a $30 billion industry, right? When I came into it. But every day, whenever you're doing anything with marketing branding, as you would know, every day is so different, and you really get to tap into your creative juices. And I knew as soon as I came into it, the first week, I fell in love, and I said, I'm just not going to do anything else. This is where I belong.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So we've kind of glossed upon, you always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So let's explore that a little bit. When you were younger, what did you do as a kid for fun?
Well, I had a lot of interest, but the funny thing was, and I still, I really need to dig this up. So I'm really glad that you actually asked this question, because my mother keeps everything. So I should really dig this up. But I used to have one of those. You remember those black and white composition books?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I used to have a ton of those. And, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, which is when I'm scratching my head now, it's like, this is very odd for a child of that age to do this. But I said, I'm going to one day own a conglomerate of businesses. So I have no idea why I did that.
Wow.
But I always had, because I just knew I wanted to be the leader. It was just making sure of leading and serving. So I was always the oldest, right, of all of the kids. So when we had families and groups of kids come together, I tended to be the oldest. I was always the one who was basically able to bring our collective together, meaning all of the kids. And, I was the one who would make up, things for us to do, or, activities and things like that. So I would say, it just really stemmed from there. And then, as I would get older and just, progress in school, I really stepped up because service is really important to me. So I did a lot of volunteering and actually coordinating volunteering efforts in middle school and high school. So, did a lot of highway cleanups, going to visit seniors
Oh my
and
goodness.
things like that. And I would coordinate our school to get those kind of things done. So I always believed in making, as big of an impact as possible. So that's something that I enjoy. And I feel like, it's really translated with Z Promotion and also some of the work that I do in terms of working outside with boards and volunteering as well.
That's really awesome. That just from a young age you knew about, you wanting to be a leader and ways that you were kind of contributing, I think pretty heavy lifting for a child your age to get all this stuff organized and together for school. So that's
I
fantastic.
found it to be a lot of fun. So, go
Good.
figure.
No, but that's good. That's the people that should be doing those things are the people that find it to be a lot of fun. Then you convince others that it's fun too. And you have done some leadership even now. So what is it about some of those positions that really kind of draw you to them? Is there like a special section that you serve, or you're just, you're willing to just help out anyone?
A lot of it does come from my own experience. So, being a woman and a woman of color, those are areas of focus for me. I just know that, my journey may not have always been the easiest. And I've always figured it out, but most of the time I was also really good about having strong mentors to support me. But I know that that's not the case many of the times for women and
Hmm.
minority entrepreneurs. So with that, that's why I am a part of a lot of the organizations that I am a part of. As you know, I followed in your great footsteps, Catherine. I'm the current president of NABO Columbus, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. Very important for me to make sure that we're connecting the dots, right, for not only our members, but really women across the state, because we're also an advocacy organization.
Yes, yes.
So it's just making sure to provide resources, make the right connection, and really sharing my own personal experience and journey. So, the things that I've gone through to be able to lend that information to people so, they can mitigate some of the risks and issues that come up for entrepreneurs. I can tell you especially for my personal experience, I don't have anybody in my family, in my immediate circle that are entrepreneurs. So there was no one I could tap into. I couldn't go to Uncle Ron and ask him, "Oh, hey, I'm this is happening in my business. What do you recommend?" Or, "Oh, hey, I would really like to connect with so and so. Can you introduce me?" That was not an actual possibility. Credit, even, that's something else that we've experienced through
Oh,
our
yeah.
journey. Going back to NABO, 1988, and HB 5050. They were integral in getting that passed, and that allowed women. So that was only 1988, by the way.
I
That
know.
allowed women to get credit on their own without a male cosigner, which it's horrific for me to even say because that's within my lifetime.
I
So,
know. Same.
I know, we chuckle, but oh my goodness, can't believe we went through that. We had to go through that. But with that, again, it's not something that it was easy for me to tap into with my family. So it's really, I had to grind and find those mentors, right? Those folks who
Hmm.
I felt like I wanted to be when I grow up, right? Reach out to them and tap into their expertise and their experience. But because they did that for me, I wanted to make sure to pay it forward, right? So that's why
Right,
it's so
right.
important to be a part of NABO, the Asian American Commerce Group, the Diversity Chamber, because with our disadvantaged groups, right? Um, Unfortunately, we need a lot more support, right? And we need folks who are willing to share that information and really open up their networks and their experience. So, yeah, that's where my motivation is.
Absolutely. And I would recommend for other people that maybe you feel like you don't have enough experience or you don't know enough to be a mentor or belong to a group like that, really reconsider that, because you will be surprised just from just walking your walk how much you've picked up along the way that could really help somebody else too. Because we were pointing out, just for me it's obviously women more than diversity, but still there's a lot of things that I know that I struggled with or that I could just advise somebody else with that, these little gems that I don't really think are that big of a deal. But then when you tell somebody else, they immediately start writing it down, and you're like, oh, was that good? Because I didn't realize that was a nugget there that I gave you. And also too, just to be around other people that are like yourself too, because that is also very helpful. Because you might think, I don't have the time or whatever, but since you and I both own a business, many of the people that listen to this own a business or are in some sort of leadership positions. They don't have other people like them to talk to, in their normal circles. You cannot necessarily be a boss and talk to your friends who hate their boss, so it's good to be around a bunch of other people that are bosses. So you can just say, do you want to do this problem? What do you do when you have a person like this? Because no one else can relate to it. Spouses can't relate. Your kids can't relate. Many of your friends can't relate. So I recommend, and I think you do too, just really seeking out groups that are with people like you, and perhaps you can help other people like you, but then also just to kind of expand so we can also just let people know that, yeah, we all belong in the room too. You don't have to all be in our little domes of knowledge, just kind of spread the word. But yeah, I really lean into some of those groups. They've been helpful for me, and I know they have been for you, which is why we decided to take the big chair with Nabo and things like that. So
Absolutely. I agree with you. A lot of the best information that I ever got really was from peer-to-peer mentorship, but not direct mentorship. People didn't realize they were
yes.
mentors to me, right? It was
Yep.
just me listening in and
Mm-hmm.
really retaining the information about, something that they went through or something that they did really successfully. And I'm like, ooh, can I apply that to my business as well? Right.
Yes.
And just making sure that you're open. And then I would tell people, oh, thank you so much for that. They didn't realize it would make an impact because they were just having a conversation. But it is unbelievable the type of mentorship you can get out there.
Absolutely. And something you might think is absolutely crippling is just a day in the life,
Yeah. Yep.
because there's always somebody else out there who's gone through it, and they're like, oh, yeah, here's what you do when that happens, So they're beneficial for your own mental health sometimes too.
Amen.
Okay, I need to ask, what do you do now that's for fun? You are still in a pretty creative sort of industry, where you get to kind of ideate and do some marketing and things like that. But what do you do when you need to unplug and really step out of your workspace?
So if you really talk to the people in my circle, they would laugh at that. They're like, but I do. So intentionally speaking, every day I do meditate every morning, do my
Nice.
25 minutes every morning because that's my time for myself, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
meditation can come in different forms. So it's not just sitting there, going over a mantra. Now that the weather is really nice, so this is something that surprises people. I actually enjoy gardening, and that's my meditation time in the
Nice.
morning. So every
Yes.
morning I would go out and, do a little weeding, watering, and just take that time for myself with nature, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I've rediscovered, I can say right now, I'm just rediscovering reading because that used to be a passion of mine when I was a
Mm-hmm.
child. And, running your business, when can you find time, right? And I'm not an audiobook person. Everyone's like, oh, just listen to a book. I said, I can't do that. I'm one of those people, I'm just very
Yeah.
tactile and I need a book in my hand. But I've rediscovered that. And it's actually been therapeutic for me because I've noticed that I've been sleeping better. And it's just brought some of the stress down. So I'm glad I've gotten back into that. A lot of people also don't understand or don't know that my first language is Korean. My mother's Korean. My father was in the military. He met my mother in Korea. So I also recently took up Korean classes because I can speak it, I can understand it, but I can't read it. So I'm going to on a big trip later
Wow.
this year. And I said, well, I really need to brush up and I want to be able to read it because I haven't read it since I was in elementary school. So doing that for fun, some people may think, oh, that's not fun, but for me, things like that, I love to learn. I love
Mm-hmm.
to, continue to develop myself. I will say, I'm going to be one of those people. I'll just continue studying and learning until, I take my last breath because I just love that. I can't get enough of taking in knowledge.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that equal a very strong business person as well, where business was growth. Because it's I don't want to say it's never really good enough, but you're always like exploring something else. Like, let's just noodle this. Let's see if we can make this better. Let me find a book on this and how we can do this new thing or whatever. Yeah, it is never ending. And I'm the exact same way. It's like, I just love learning new things and trying different things. And it's so funny that you brought up meditation, because I just did put a post up about meditation and how for me, I always have to go one step further. I can't meditate with, like the traditional way with just breathing and things like that. It's always got to be something else that kind of gets me out of my space and shuts my business mind off in order to, just give it a break, for lack of a better term, just give it a break. And it's funny that you mentioned gardening too, because automatically I was thinking about when I go out and I water and things like that, I end up talking to the plants and just like, so how's everybody out here? Who needs water? Oh, you're a little dry. Okay, well, maybe you need a new pot because you're draining too fast and things like that. So it's fun in that regard too.
We're definitely soul sisters on that, Catherine, because I do that. And I have great conversations with the animals, because I can't tell you how many times I've been frightened by doves and rabbits that have just come out after me, because I'm watering and but yeah, I have a lot of different conversations out there. It's funny.
Oh,
But
that's
I did
funny.
see your piece on meditation. That's why that was also a forefront of my mind, because I'm
For
like,
sure.
oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad to know that you practice that as well. So
Yeah. Well, at least I try. Like I said, I
yeah.
am very much of a shiny object person, and I feel like if this sounds so terrible, if I feel like or maybe not, I feel like if I'm not learning something all the time, I'm wasting it.
Yeah.
So it is really challenging for me to just stop the thinking. It's like, no, what, you can do this, but I have to do more than just listen to the sound of my breathing to do it. It's always got to be something else added on to kind of break the thought process, I guess is probably the best way to put it.
I
So
completely get you.
okay, we'll have to try and get together and meditate sometime. And by that I mean work in the garden or do something extra.
I love it. That sounds amazing.
Well, Zulene, I cannot thank you enough for being on today. I think your business is amazing. We have definitely used your services for some of our stuff, and you've been very helpful in that regard. Where we, and even too, just buying the right thing is just so important part of that discussion. And sometimes it might be a little more. I'll just use pens for example, because I always collect the good pens and I pitch the bad pen. So we could get a cheap pen, or we could get a nice pen, knowing that somebody is going to hang on to it. And that was part of the discussions I had with one of your teammates. Here's our price point. Like, yes, but, and they were right. They were absolutely right. So yeah, I think what you do is fantastic, and it's not just about the selling, it's about the relationship and the understanding of your customers too. So thank you for sharing that as well. But I appreciate you and all that you do in the community, and I appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your story.
I appreciate you having me on, Catherine. You're doing such wonderful things with this, and kudos to you, and I praise your continued success. So
Thank you so much. Thank you.